Good evening. With inflation and the cost of living on the rise, a lot of Albertans are worried about money.
And those worries are getting even worse for Alberta students as a wave of tuition hike is sweeping the province. Our Adam Dalke joins us live from our news center with more on that story.
Thanks, guys. You know, calling a student broke is a lot like saying water is wet. You're not wrong, it's just weird that you feel the need to point it out. That being said, these days pretty much everyone is feeling how light their wallets are. Plus, when you take into account the proposed tuition hikes of at least 5% for domestic students and 6 to 7% for international students that's being proposed by some universities, kind of feels like some students just can't win. It was a cold day just like this when, last week, U of A students came out to protest a proposed tuition hike. This was only 3 days after University of Calgary students held their own protest. In the past, tuition fees were frozen to keep them from rising, but that freeze was removed in 2020 by the United Conservative Party. It's been 3 years since then, and even though leadership of the UCP has changed, their approach to post-secondary education hasn't.
Will the minister admit that approving these hikes are a short-sighted, job-killing decision?
Tuition in Alberta is below the national average. I know the member from Edmonton Northwest the other day said that was inaccurate. I'd encourage him to visit a website called Stats Canada. It's usually pretty reliable.
With nothing to stop universities from raising tuition, students at other schools, including NAIT, have started to worry.
I know people that will have to work a lot more to pay and get by.
I don't think I would be able to live here in the city because I pay $500 rent and I don't make enough money doing minimum wage to, live in the house I currently live in.
I wouldn't be here if NAIT raises tuition. It's already expensive as is right now, and if they raise tuition, I think many students in this school wouldn't be able to afford it.
And you don't have to be a student to be worried about tuition increases. David Egan, advanced education critic for the Alberta NDP, thinks that these tuition hikes are going too far.
Many people cannot afford the cost of living right now. We have inflation that is exceeding 7% across the board. And so for students, they're hit even harder.
Mr. Egan went on to say that if funding hadn't been cut for schools in the first place, schools now wouldn't be needing to raise tuition.
Adam, I think the question on everyone's mind is NAIT going to raise tuition?
Well, it's kind of starting to look that way. I had a conversation yesterday with NAIT's VP External, Mr. Jody Goylander, and he told me that NAIT is in fact raising tuition this year. He expects that they'll raise it to the legal limit, which is just under about 7% is about the average. We're assuming that the prices will be less for domestic students than they will be for international, but at this point we just have to wait to see what those final numbers are.
Now, Adam, do we know when we can expect those increases?
Honestly, we don't really know for sure. Usually, NAIT announces its tuition about the end of February, but at this point we just don't know. We are keeping an eye on this story, so anything that comes up in the next coming months, we will report on.
Thanks, Adam. That's Adam Dalke reporting live from our news center tonight.